rainy spring day to further the republic. I am Amy. I am Drew's wife. On his behalf, I send you greetings. We would love to be here in person with you today. However, as you all know, there's 46 counties in the great state of South Carolina, and you can only be in one at one time, so he was already obligated to be in another county today. I know you guys have been here long. I'm not going to keep you very long at all, because I know Mark's got some things he wants to share as well. But first of all, thank you for the honor and the privilege to speak to you, and thank you for being here as part of this. So I'm going to give you a brief overview of just some of the highlights of Drew's accomplishments in the last 2 years. He actually has been chairman for the last 4, but I'm just going to look at the last 2 real quick. And then I'm going to give you a little personal glimpse into Drew as a person. I am the person that stays with him, obviously, as his wife. I'm the one that knows him better other than God himself. So let me just say a couple things. One, South Carolina had the best year election-wise in 140 years. We have won the most elections for Republicans since Reconstruction. And even though the nation at large didn't turn out the way we wanted to for President Trump, he took South Carolina with more votes than any president ever before him.
Thank you, President Trump.
And that has to do with the grassroots, ground on the floor, across the state, turnout that the state party pushed forward. They did an awesome job. We also did not have ballot election integrity issues here in the great state of South Carolina, and that's because the city chairman saw what the Democrats wanted to do. They were pushing same-day registration. They were pushing all this absentee ballot stuff, using COVID as a cover, and he saw it before it became a problem, like it did in other states. He jumped into that legislation. He was named as a plaintiff in it. He got his outstanding legal staff that represents the party. They jumped in, went to the Supreme Court, and you know what? They're the only people that won at the Supreme Court for election integrity in the great state of South Carolina. Not only that, we also have the heartbeat bill that's now law. The party was a huge supporter behind the scenes to make that come to pass. And not only has Drew been endorsed by the South Carolina Citizens for Life, which is the pro-life organization in the state, but he has been endorsed not once, but twice by President Donald J. Trump. Now, that means, for those of you who are MAGA supporters, if you support Donald J. Trump, then you have to question yourself if you're choosing not to support the person that he's endorsing. The two go hand in hand. So I'm going to just take a couple minutes and just talk to you about the personal side of Drew. And I'm going to do that by illustrating a story for you. Now, if you lived in the state of South Carolina in 2018, you may be familiar with some part of this story. At the time, we had a candidate by the name of Katie Arrington in the Low Country. She had defeated Mark Sanford for that congressional seat, and she was going across campaigning. It was a very rainy night, sort of like this. She was traveling on the road in Charleston, and unfortunately, Katie was not the only person on the road that night. There was another person, a drunk driver, who was driving the wrong way, and slammed into Katie and her friend head on. That driver died at the scene. So, Katie and her friend were very seriously injured. In fact, they had life-threatening injuries. So, we're at home in the middle of the night, the phone rings. Now, I don't know about you, but I have never gotten good news in the middle of the night with a phone call. Has anybody here ever gotten good news? It's never good news at midnight. The phone rings, and it's Hope Walker, who's Drew's executive director. She said, Hope, Drew, I'm so sorry to tell you this, but Katie's been in a horrific head-on accident. We don't know if she's going to survive. And so at that moment, we did what we hoped that every person would do. We prayed for Katie that she would live and not die, and we prayed for her family. Now, in the natural, Drew has another responsibility as well as state chairman. His job is to get Republicans elected to the state of South Carolina. So there were questions. One, would Katie live? That was the big question. Then if Katie did live, would Katie be physically able to campaign? Would she be physically disabled? Would she be cosmetically disabled? And as a female, I can tell you, that's almost as devastating as a physical disability. So there were questions about, well, what do? We need to take this Congress seat. It's not just for the state of South Carolina, but for the United States as a whole. As you well know, every seat matters. Every seat matters. And so the decision was, what are you going to do, Mr. Chairman? You don't know if your candidate's going to make it. And I can tell you equivocally, because I was there in those rooms for those discussions. He never questioned who was going to be that candidate. Katie won that primary. That was her race. He backed Katie. And if any of you are familiar with that recovery, Katie had a miraculous recovery. It is nothing short than God himself in that. Now, Katie went on. She lost the battle for that seat, but she won the war for her life. And she did that with the grace of Almighty God, and she did that with her family, and she did that with the backing of a state Republican Party, Chairman Drew McKissick leading it, who will not turn their back on somebody when it's politically expedient to do so. And so as you guys go forward, you have a decision to make about leadership of the state party. And you have a say-so in that. But I'm imploring you that you look at the fruit that's been born over the last 2 years. You've got Donald J. Trump that got the most votes of any president. You've got legislation that's pro-life, that's pro-family being backed up. He has the fruit, and he knows the job, and he's built the relationships. So I'm asking you for your vote. I'm asking you if you're a delegate that you go to state election and you vote to re-elect him. If you have any questions about Drew, I'm here. I'll be here for a few more minutes. If you want to say and ask me something, I'm happy to answer. Otherwise, you guys be blessed and have a great day.